We get this question a lot on our business consulting division where clients want to know how to hire a legitimate private investigative agency or a private investigator. And it's a good question because when it comes time to hire a private investigator to do something, usually it's because you have a very serious life event happening. It could be a divorce, could be a probate, might be an asset search for a judgment or a lawsuit. It may be some fraud that you need to solve, that you've lost money. Hiring a private investigator is not just like, hiring DoorDash to bring food to your house. This is an important subject. So you want to make sure that you hire somebody legitimate and that's qualified. How do you do it? Well, there's 3 factors that are extremely important. The first and easiest is to make sure that the private investigator is licensed. Private investigating as a business, as an enterprise, is a licensed activity in most states. A couple states have exceptions to that. It's not something that anybody can just decide one day, I want to be a private investigator, put up a website, and start doing investigations. The government requires that you have a license. Most of those licenses require that you have experience, training, pass a course, pass a test, have insurance, have a bond, many different factors. In addition, most states require that the investigator does regular continuing education so that every year when you renew your license, you show that you had a certain number of hours of updated training and experience and maybe even testing. Because the skills and the nature of experience that you need to have to do an investigation changes every year. Look, 4 years ago, there was really no need to know that much about cyber protection, online fraud, cryptocurrency. 2022, 2023, those are extremely important subjects to know about as a private investigator. So they want to make sure you're keeping your skills and knowledge updated. So making sure that your investigator is licensed is extremely important. If they're not licensed, then first of all, you don't know how good they are. Second of all, if they're willing to break the law by acting as an investigator without a license, acting as an unlicensed PI, what else are they willing to do? I mean, they're willing to jeopardize their legal status. How would they not jeopardize your legal status or misrepresent to you? So licensing is important. Let's leave it at that. The second thing has to do with experience. Private investigating as a business is a wide range of activities. There's surveillance. There's witness interviews. There's forensics. There's research. There's digital investigations on electronic devices. There are security and bodyguarding that goes under private investigating. It's a wide range. You want to make sure that your investigator is skilled and focuses on the area that you need. For example, if you, God forbid, were arrested for a major crime and you need to hire an attorney, you wouldn't hire a divorce attorney to represent you in a criminal defense case. Same thing with investigators. If you need a very good digital forensics investigator to go through cell phones, tablets, digital records, you don't want to hire somebody who does surveillance only or that specializes in surveillance. By the same token, if you needed very covert, excellent surveillance monitoring a person, you don't want to hire an investigative agency that does financial asset searching because they're not going to have the experience. The thing you need to know is the license does not differentiate between different types of investigators. Once you have a license, technically, you can do all of it. but you may not be as good at one thing or another. So make sure that your investigative agency has a specialty that matches what your needs are going to be. How do you determine that? Well, first, look at the website of the investigative agency for what's called a practice area. Attorneys will have this as well. It's the area that they do their business in. That's their focus of investigative activities and services. Second, at some point you'll want to talk to the investigator or the agency to find out what kind of cases they do. Now, they can't give you specifics on who their clients are and their cases because it's all kept confidential. But they can tell you they work on certain types of cases. We recommend you ask them about what cases they work on before you tell them what kind of case you have. Because if you tell them, I have an asset search case, what kind of cases do you do? It might be tempting for them to try to sell a new case to you by saying, yeah, we do asset searches. So you might want to ask them first what they focus on and what their experience is, and maybe even give them a little bit of due diligence on what they know about it. The third part of hiring a legitimate private investigator is performing some due diligence on the investigator. It won't take that long. 15-20 minutes online will be just fine. First, verify their license. You can do that through the Division of Licensing in their state. Second, you want to search for any cases or training or expert witness testimony that they have showing online. A private investigator who has extensive experience in an area will have plenty of court cases they've been part of as a witness, as an expert witness, somebody providing documents, and you'll see that name will pop up. And the last thing you want to do is look at the size and scope of the agency. This is the tricky part. Most private investigators who get licensed come from law enforcement. They are a former police officer. That is the easiest way to get a license because almost every state that gives out licenses for private investigators requires that you have 2 to 5 years experience as an investigator before you get a license. Well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get experience to be an investigator if you don't have a license? Well, most of it comes from police work. So if you're a police officer, you work for 15, 20 years and you retire, you now can use that experience to get a private investigator's license. Many police officers really don't intend to have their final career be an investigator, but when they retire, they're sitting around doing nothing. They figure, well, I might as well be a PI. 99% of private investigators are an individual sole proprietor, Joe Schmo PI. Nothing wrong with that. They could be perfectly good at their job. But they're not a large enterprise organization. How can you find it out? Look at the address. Is it a home address? Is it a P.O. box? Is it a UPS store? Do they have employees, or is it just one person working from home, working from the basement? Again, nothing right or wrong about that, but you have to decide as a client, do you want an agency working on your case or just one person? Because it's going to cost you the same either way. An agency has more resources. They have different people who can work on different things. One person, it may be a side job for them to do some PI work. It may be something that is not necessarily a dedicated career path. So getting an idea of the scope of your agency that you're working with is important. Just because they have a corporation too doesn't mean it's not just one person. What about, does the private investigator need to be close to you in proximity, geographically? Well, yes and no. If you're looking at doing surveillance or witness interviews or depositions or serving of notices, serving of subpoenas, they have to be near you because they have to to be physically close to where the subjects are. However, if you're doing a case that is digital forensics, asset searching, document forensics, research, background checks, the agency doesn't necessarily need to be near you. They can be really anywhere. And what that does is opens up availability of higher quality potential investigative agencies. Because, look, what are the chances the best agency for your use is right near you? When's the last time you drove down the street and saw a sign in a window that said, "Hey, private investigator"? Right? You don't see that in the strip mall. You don't see that in the shopping center. Because there's not a whole lot of private investigative agencies. There's not one in every corner like a cell phone store. For that reason, the chances of a really good one being right near you is slim to none. Having any one of them near you is going to be slim to none. But even if there is, what are the odds they're going to be really good at your kind of case? So by opening up geographically, as long as it's appropriate, you give yourself a chance to have higher quality work. Those are some suggestions that go into hiring a private investigator. You can find more on our website, things to look for. On our video channel, give you some clues on who might be good and who might be better at your case. And of course, as always, leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Even questions about your case or private investigators in general. Just don't put anything sensitive or personal in the comments, because anybody can read them. And you might get some feedback on what might be a good way to hire a legitimate private investigator or agency.